Trying to start a podcast right as a train's going by, just blowing the horn. What's up, everybody? Today, on this episode of the Cash Physical Therapy Headquarters podcast, we're talking about building a cash practice to sell. Even if you've never contemplated building a practice to sell, it's really, really important to build it with the intention of having an asset that you can sell. Because having an asset that you can sell means you're making the money you want to, you have the time freedom you want to, and ultimately you've built something that could create a huge impact in the world, whether you're working or not. Which ultimately, when we talk to the thousands of PTs who've helped to this point, that's what everyone wants. They want the income they want to have a bigger impact, and they want to have time to be able to spend that with family members. So, Ben, this is a big topic. We obviously just got done with our in-person live event over at Santa Monica, where we taught a great deal on this topic. What does this topic mean to you, man?
A lot. I mean, it's so many people, especially in the physical therapy space, don't really ever intend to sell, which is fine. But the reality is one day it's probably going to happen. And most clinic owners do not have an exit plan. And because they don't have an exit plan, they lose out on literally millions of dollars. And most of the time when sellable events happen, where like the clinic sells, it's actually due to, I think 30%, I saw that 30% of the time it's actually due to personal or health related issues. Like things that you can't plan for, and then you're kind of fucked is what it comes down to. You know, you just have this intention of like how your life is going to go, and then, you know, life happens, health issues happen. And because you didn't use the years to prepare, now the business can't run without you, and you can't sell it because it's not a sellable asset because you just told yourself, oh, no intention of selling. Right. So you do need to have an exit plan. And even if you don't intend to sell, what's going to make your life much more easier and manageable as just an individual is structuring it like you're going to sell, because you're going to get more of your time back.
Right. And it gives you a completely different frame to figure out like, what do I need to work on next within my business? And really what we're talking about here today is what makes the difference between job owners, people that literally just built a job for themselves that maybe pays them more, but ultimately they're working 10 times harder than they ever have. And then this separates them from entrepreneurs, people who think and act like CEOs and build sellable assets. And that's the difference between a job owner and an actual entrepreneur. And when you frame it and build your practice with the intention of building something to sell, just like when someone goes to sell their home, right? They get everything fixed up. They get nicer furniture to start staging the place. And then when they're actually ready to list the property, they're like, oh shit, like I could have been living here the whole time. I don't really want to sell anymore. It's the exact same concept with our businesses. Build it as if you're staging it to sell, because when you do that, turns out it's like, wow, this is actually a business that I don't want to sell anymore. Take Ben, for example. Ben has built his practice with the intention of selling, but he probably isn't going to anytime soon. I mean, a couple million a year, 30% profit margin. And what I mean, realistically, Ben, like what's your week to week look like in the practice now they got directors on board?
Yeah, I mean, like from regards to like the Oakland location, which has 8 physical therapists, 1 personal trainer, and 2 front desk, and a clinic director, I have 3 meetings to run that location. 3 hours a week is all it takes to run that location. It's a meeting with the clinic director, 1 meeting with our sales team, and then another one like our L10 meeting. So everybody that's on the leadership position. Those 3 meetings, that's all it takes for the Oakland location to run smoothly. Do I work more than 3 hours to help that location grow? Absolutely, because I'm like, I love doing it and I want it to grow faster. Obviously, if I'm involved, it's going to grow faster, and I love doing what I'm doing. And so I do more than 3 hours. But if it really came down to it, like, you know, I had health issues or something popped up, or I want to go on a vacation or something like that, or like, you know, go away for a month, you know, could get away with doing those 3 hours, and it'd still grow, not just run, but it'd still grow.
Right. So now you have an asset that you are actively getting offers to purchase, but why would you? Because you already have this asset that's giving you the lifestyle they want, so you can invest into other areas, both financially and in terms of your time. And so the process that we're about to show you, this is something that Ben and I discovered when both of our businesses got to the multiple 7-figure realm. When you start to think, it's like, okay, well, I know what this business is worth to me. It's my baby. I built this thing brick by brick. I wonder what other people would value it at. And then when we initially went and had our businesses valuated, we're like, holy crap, Like, we might be doing a couple 7 figures a year, but this isn't worth nearly as much what I thought it was, because we weren't seeing our businesses through the lens of an actual investor. And so what we discovered changed absolutely everything. Big enough. It's big enough so that we had to host a live event where we had a bunch of our mastermind clients fly in so that we could teach them this particular framework. So we're going to cover the 5 key areas. Why building a sellable business increases your income, impact, and freedom. Kind of already covered all of that. Number 2 is the 5 key areas that increase practice valuation and how to fix them right now. And then how to remove yourself from the daily operations and still grow. And lastly, the silent killers that crush your business valuation and make ultimately your life a hell of a lot more difficult, and likely why you're so stressed out all the time. So we already kind of covered like why building this business makes the most sense, because your priorities may change one day. Ultimately, you're building this business to have a bigger impact, make more money, and have more time. Okay. In order to have more time, we need to start thinking like an actual CEO and systematically grow our business so that we're not busy doing a bunch of just random tasks every day, but we're focused on the core things that are actually moving the needle, that are increasing profit and giving us back our time. Okay. If you grow your business with that, you're going to grow a hell of a lot faster than most practices, as Ben did. And you're going to find that you have way more time to focus on high level tasks. So let's go right into the 5 key areas that increase practice valuations. Number 1 is profit. Okay, Ben, let's talk about this one, because people get this so wrong and make their lives so freaking hard. I got off a call with someone a week ago whose quarterly goal was to get to 10% profit. And she was really proud of her 5% profit. And it was like, I know she was telling me how stressed she is, but she was like proud of that. And it's like, someone should have told her earlier. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's insane. You run $1 million practice at 5% profit margin. That's a $50,000. Like you're better off. I can only imagine. She's probably not even had $1 million practice. I can only imagine. Like all this work that she's putting in and the time that she's putting in, how little her time is worth. I mean, not doing math really quick, but probably like a $15 to $20 per hour pay rate. If you're working 60 80-hour weeks and you're paying yourself $50,000, that's again if she has $1 million practice. Right. That's a lot of stress when you honestly be better off just getting a PRN job or working somewhere else at that point. Heck, even working out. I mean, it's extreme, but like you're pretty much getting the same pay rate as McDonald's.
Yep.
Worker at that point.
Right. But you're so much more stressed. And even if you are doing 7 figures without profit, your business is worth nothing. So you can't even sell it if you want to, which is embarrassing. And it's a sad way to live. Okay. And it's mostly on like coach's fault, because everyone romanticizes these big revenue numbers. And so people make growth decisions based off of increasing revenue without looking at profit. But profit is where all the leverage is. Okay. A practice, one of our clients, he's not our biggest client, but he's making more than most of the clients in our programs that are making way more than him, because he's doing $60,000 a month, but he has a 41% profit margin. That means he has $24,000 a month that he can either reinvest into the business or just take home. Do you think his life is harder or easier than the business doing $100,000 a month, but only has a 10% profit margin? Okay. Which business would you rather have? The smaller one with the higher profit margin. So the biggest mistake most people are making early on is they're making revenue decisions, not profit decisions. You should aim for, if you're solo, your profit margin should be closer to 50%. If you've grown and started to scale the business, got your own space, maybe have an admin or someone on your team, 30% is where you should be. That is a healthy business. If you're way over that, you're probably not spending enough. If you're way under that, you're an operational nightmare. You're probably winging it every day. Anything to add to that, Ben?
No. It's that's really the only thing that matters is profit. Right. So who cares about revenue goals? Like honestly,
right.
It's the only thing that changes your life is profit, not revenue. Right.
And so a big factor that's going to determine the value of your business is your EBITDA. Ben, explain what EBITDA is for everybody, because I know at our mastermind, even people didn't really know what it is.
Yeah, in most simplest, that's the thing too, is we can make it very complicated, but in the physical therapy space, it's simply what is your profit, more or less. So EBITDA will take in like after taxes, after profit, stuff like that. Like that's what your EBITDA is. And so just for keep it very simple for our listeners, it's just pretty essentially your profit. There's different things that go and factor in evaluations when it comes to EBITDA for other businesses, but just to make
Right.
it very clear, it's just profit.
Right.
So,
Right. It stands for earning before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Okay, it's just a fancy word for profit, basically. But you need to understand that term if you're going to be good at business. And so that's the number one thing. If you're early in your business, it's the only thing you should be focused on. Is this decision going to increase profit? And if it doesn't, probably not worth your time. Okay. Now, the other things that are going to improve your valuation of your business is your revenue growth year over year. What is your growth percentage? So you basically take the previous year divided by the current year to calculate what your average growth rate is. And so you're looking to be above or at 30%. That's a really good growth rate for a practice. If you are a savage, like many of our clients are, well, then, getting to like the high 60s, 70%, that is obviously is going to give you a higher exit multiplier on depending on your growth rate. And if you go from solo to adding just one PT, you can very easily hit that 100% growth rate just by doing that.
Yeah. If you, especially in the early years, you should be closer to that 100% mark. I think the
Right.
first 2 years, first 2 or 3 years, it was 100% growth rate.
Right. So the next value adder, the thing that's going to increase your valuation that you should be taking into account when you're tracking your metrics and making decisions on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis is your yearly revenue retention. Okay, this is basically your patient lifetime value. How long are you able to retain a customer and make sure that you are increasing that lifetime value? Because the higher your lifetime value, the more you can spend to profitably acquire a patient. And if you can spend more to acquire a patient profitably than everyone else in your market, then you're going to dominate them every single time, as Ben has. You want to talk a little bit about that, Ben?
Yeah, essentially, like if you are only charging like 100, 150 bucks a session and somebody sticks around for, let's say you're really good with retention, you have somebody stick around for 10 sessions, let's say 10 sessions at 100 bucks, that's $1,000 lifetime value. Mm-hmm. Versus my practice, we average around $231 per session. And so that's $2,300. So we essentially have almost 2.5 times as much LTV as somebody that just charges $100, or in a lot of cases, the insurance-based clinics, right? So I can outspend them on Facebook ads. I can outspend them on Google ads. I can hire best of the best for marketing. I can invest in better business coaching. I'm just better leverage, and profit margins are better. I can pay people better. Like a lot of clinics are having a hard time attracting, especially in the Bay Area. The cost of living is so high. A lot of clinic owners are having a hard time recruiting, and they cannot charge enough to be able to attract people in the Bay Area to work for them as a physical therapist. And they can't do that because they can't charge what they want to because they're contracted with insurance. It's such a stupid fucking business model. Like, why would you get into business where you came and dictate the main, like one of the main movers of what, like that is what can you charge? What can you generate? So that's a big level up that we have as cash-based PTs. We can charge what we want. We're not capped. So our LTV is not impacted. So for those that talk about how insurance model is better than cash-based, I don't understand how you make that argument. You can't even set your own rates. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Right. So. Well, they're indoctrinated into the idea that you can only help people when they ask you for help, but most people don't know what it is that they actually need. And so what's better? Waiting for someone to ask you and to learn what it is they actually need to come and ask you for the help and only give them what they ask for? Or is it better to be a master of your craft and be able to lead people and tell them what it is that they need and help them shift the beliefs that are necessary to get them the long-term results that they want? So is it really a better model, or are you just afraid to step into the light and actually lead people?
Yeah, what it comes down to.
Right. So lifetime value, very, very important, because the other side of that is if you don't have great lifetime value, that means you're churning out patients faster, which means you need to spend more to acquire more patients, which increases your expenses. So the lower your lifetime value, the higher your marketing costs, the lower your profit. And so the greater you're able to retain clients year over year, the less you have to spend on marketing, better the profit margin. Okay. So those are the things, these are the metrics you need to be measuring every single month. And every decision you make needs to be based on one of these factors. And if it's not on one of these factors, then it's not a smart business decision. There's something else you could be working on that's going to be better for the business and the impact you're trying to have. Now, that is a perfect transition to the final piece here, which none of you have likely heard of. It is your LTV, lifetime value to CAC, customer acquisition cost ratio. Okay, it's the ratio between how much people spend with you and how much it costs to acquire them. This is one of the most important ratios in your business, because it's going to tell potential investors, how much does it cost me to make this much? So if it costs me $100 to acquire a patient and they spend $2,000 with us, well, that is a really, really healthy business that people would want to acquire, because you already have a system for basically being able to, 20x every dollar you put into that business. Mm-hmm. That is the ratio they're looking for. So increasing your lifetime value while reducing your average cost per acquisition for your customers. And so we already talked about how to calculate your lifetime value. How to calculate your customer acquisition cost is your total time and financial investment in acquiring your patients. It could be the ad revenue or the ad spend that you're putting into ads. It could be the time that you are spending to network and to do workshops. Well, what is your future hire's hourly rate that would cost you to do that same work? So if you're solo, to get an accurate estimate on your customer acquisition cost is, imagine if you weren't the one doing it, if you were paying an employee to do what it is you're doing. What is the hourly rate? How much does that cost you? And then divide that by the total number of new customers that have been acquired over the last 6 months, the last year, the last month, however long you've been in business. A trailing 12 month is the best case scenario. So that's your customer acquisition cost. Now, the ratio between your lifetime value to the customer acquisition cost, the higher the number. If you can get to that 10, around 10, that's a really, really healthy multiple. Ben, do you remember what yours was when you went through this sort of thing?
Yeah, we average right around 14.5.
Outrageous. Outrageous. Okay, so those are all the things that really every decision you make in business should be centered around moving the needle on those 4 or 5, well, really 4 different things. Now, each one of those, depending on where you land, is going to give you a different multiplier that you can exit your practice around. So those are the things that you should really be focused on in the early stages of your business. Now, this is kind of a good segue, okay? Because the number one thing that's going to maximize the value of your business is that it can run without you. Because if you one day want to sell the practice, but the whole practice depends on you, let's tell them real quick about what the bus test is.
Yeah, hit by the bus test. If you were hit by a bus today, what would happen to your practice? Would it last an hour? Would it last 24 hours? Would it last a week, months, years, stuff like that? So that's the big thing, is if you can't pass that, your business really isn't worth anything. And that's why I think it's so important to work your way out of treatment, at least down to at least 10 hours or less, ideally completely, unless you get a lot of fulfillment out of it. But I've worked myself out of treatment it's been almost 4 years now. And so now I've not just worked myself out of treatment. Now I've also worked myself out of the leadership position of managing the physical therapist, managing the front desk. The clinic director now does that, right? So because that clinic director is in place and essentially runs the show, it's not relying on me. I'm kind of there more or less to meet with them once a week to just kind of be the safety net. If they have questions about a decision to make, I help them think through that. I'm not actually making the decision. I'm mainly just helping them think through it and how to think, right? Because at this point, I'm not telling people what to do. I'm teaching them how to think. Because if I can teach them how to think, that's how the business continues to grow without me. Because they can make decisions like, if there's an issue with the Oakland location or the San Diego location, I feel comfortable with 99.9% of the decisions that they will make, because I know that they'll make the same decision I would have, because I've taught them how to think. And that is what's valuable. Because if I sell the practice, the buyer wants to know, hey, everything's going to run smoothly. I can confidently say that because I know that they think like me.
Right.
I've taught them how to think, and they can do that whether I'm there or not or available.
Right. And so your practice is going to be sold around 3 to 5x if you can remove yourself from that business. Now, if the business depends on you and something changes in your life, maybe you're moving, maybe some emergency happens and you need funds, you want to sell the business. Well, if your business depends on you and have what's called key man risk, one of your value detractors, well then they might give you a decent valuation, but it's going to be performance based and it's going to require you to stay in the business. And to actually get those distributions and those payouts, you have to continue to run and operate that business and hit certain milestones. And there's a million different things that can happen over the 3 to 5 years. They're going to require you to work there that can tank the overall profitability of your business, and you might end up not getting anything. And so we got to remove ourselves from the business. And me and Ben's philosophy on doing this is to identify the things that take you the most amount of time and hand those off first. For most people, that means getting out of treatment so that you can focus on these value adders: revenue growth, EBITDA, annual revenue retention, and lifetime value. Okay. You need to get out of treatment so you can focus on growing the business. And so, Ben, you hired PT first. And then once you got out of treatment, well, then all of your time went to the front end sales and doing the admin work so that you could build the processes and SOPs around that. And then once you had the processes and SOPs for a proven system, that's when you replaced yourself. And now you have all of your time back to focus on these numbers. And then obviously to increase EBITDA and profit and revenue growth, well, then you just needed to add another PT. So is there anything else you want to add with like how to get yourself out of there?
No, I mean, most of it's just a mental roadblock.
Yeah.
It's mainly the treatment. It's insane. That's honestly the easiest one. Easiest one from a logistical standpoint to hand off. But mentally, it is the hardest one for people to overcome. It's a very interesting phenomenon that we see. Not obviously, I went through it myself, but seeing with clients too, it's a big hurdle mentally for people. But logistically, it's the easiest one to hand off for sure. The one that's most difficult is that clinic director position from a logistical standpoint, teaching somebody how to think like you and lead people and coach people. Like that's the toughest one to hand off. Yeah, the easiest one is honestly the treatment from legit.
How many PTs did you hire before you brought on director?
We had, again, this was around, again, across all locations, I was managing about a little over 10 people before I started bringing somebody on as a clinic director. So I pretty much had 10 direct reports to me, which just was a lot. Yep. So that's the thing too that people don't realize is, oh, I'll work myself out of treatment and then I'm good to go. No, you're still, if you grow a team, you know how you had like patients, you have, let's say 20 to 25 patients that you're treating. You hand off treatment, but now you build a team of like 10 to 20. Now you have essentially what feels like 10 to 20 patients because you're taking care of the team now. And it just got to the point where I wasn't really able to grow the business I wanted to because I was stuck with having 10 to 15 direct reports. And I was like, this is too much. Now I'm back into the weeds of things. I can't focus on what moves the needle the most because I'm a direct report for too many people. And I was also just at the point where I wasn't able to support people the way that they needed to because there's too many people reporting to me, right? And so that's when I realized, hey, I need to. But to answer your question, for the Oakland location, we were at about 5 PTs before I formally brought on a clinic director for that position.
So from a high level view for everyone listening, there's really 4 stages of every business in going through this ascension path. And if you follow what we're talking about, you're going to get there faster than anyone else. What takes most people 20 years, you can do in 6, as Ben has. So it starts out with getting really good at the service, delivering a great service that gets great outcomes that people love. If you do that well enough, then you have the opportunity to build the standard operating procedures and the systems that make the fulfillment on your services scalable, meaning you have it documented. You can bring someone else in who can start implementing at the same level that you can. And once you have those SOPs and those systems in place, that's when you actually have a business. And From there, the next step is then building the people that build the business. You have the systems, you have the SOPs. Now you're delegating and plugging people into those SOPs, and your customer is no longer your patients. Okay, that's the customer of your hires. Your customer are your employees. Okay, this is where things start to get really, really fun and you become an actual leader and you get a lot of time and financial leverage. And once you are good enough at leading people and you're able to retain those people, and you can create processes around leading those people, that's when you can hire a director and you enter the fourth stage, which is where everyone wants to be when you become a true investor, as Ben has been able to accomplish. Where now he's pretty much removed, and all he needs to do if he wants to make more money is basically, instead of taking distributions, reinvest that back into the business, or take that distribution and invest it into his real estate assets or anything else he wants to put that money towards. So the path is really simple. It's simple, but not easy, if that makes sense. But it's a hell of a lot easier if you follow these value adders and just focus all of your decisions based on that. How you structure your packages, what your rates are, who you hire, when you hire them, how you document your systems, all of that. Anything
No, it's just, it's simple, but not easy, but it's a hell of a lot easier than the alternative. I've been, stuck in treatment and on a team and calling all the leads, doing that until I'm 45, 50 plus. No, thank you.
Right. What's riskier? Spending the next 30 years of your life running a job that you own that pays you okay, but then have very little nest egg to live off of? Or is it riskier to bet on yourself, learn these skills, replace yourself in the business, and work your ass off so that in 5 years, you have something that you could sell if you wanted to, and then exit the business for millions if you ever need to?
Yeah. There's a interesting book that I was reading that made me think along these lines of, it's a greater risk not to get started, and not doing this than doing it. So for example, I added up I've been a licensed PT for 6 years. 6 years. Let's say I make $100,000. That's $600,000 I would have generated over the last 6 years if I would have not taken the risk of starting my business. And today we've generated over almost $10 million within just ProKinetics alone. That's not including the real estate, clinical market, or anything like that. That's just strictly from the business.
You just cleared 10 million.
We're close. We're getting really close to it. And so that's the thing too, is that's what asks you, what's the bigger risk? For me, what was the bigger risk? Would have been a hell of a lot bigger risk for me to stay. Essentially would have lost out on almost $10 million by staying, right? And again, that's just for ProKinetics. That's not real estate assets. That's not clinical marketer. That's not anything like that. That's also not you can't put a value on the time freedom either, And so that's for those worried or hesitant, they don't want to take the risk of making their first hire or starting their business. Let me ask you that. What's the bigger risk?
Right. And for those of you that want to build an online business rather than a company, because it sounds like it's going to be easier, just to give you some context, Clinical Marketer is a very successful company. And we started around the same time Ben started his practice. We've done 6 million in that same time frame. And I can tell you right now, I'm not nearly as removed from Clinical Marketer as Ben is from ProKinetics. It is far easier to scale a brick and mortar business and an online company because the rules stay the same. They don't change every 6 months as the algorithms and social media change. So keep that in perspective. But Ben, I'm coming for you, dude. We're scaling. We're scaling. I'm on that ass, dude. Anyway, so let's to wrap things up. There's a few things that we need to have in mind when maximizing our enterprise value of our business, meaning the higher the enterprise value, the more time and financial freedom you have, the more people are interested in acquiring your business if you ever need to or want to. And so those 3 key factors are key man risk. We already talked about that. How much does the business depend on you? If you got sick, got hit by a bus, would the business continue to grow over the next 6 months? And if that answer is no, huge drop in your exit multiplier. Number 10 is single channel risk. You want to explain this?
Yeah. So this one is where your clients come from. So I had this issue before I met Jordan Max, where my single channel risk was relying completely on workshops. Where do all your patients come from? Well, at that time, it was all workshops. And then COVID hit. And then everything dried up. Now we need to rely on Facebook ads, stuff like that. people finding us online. And so that is why a single channel risk is a risk. I experienced it. We were only relying on workshops. Pandemic hits, gyms closed. What are you going to do? Whole channel dried up. That's why it's not a business that only has one channel. It's not worth anything. You take that channel away, it's gone, right? So you want to diversify, whether that's people finding you online, Google reviews, referrals, Facebook ads, workshops, word of mouth, stuff like that. That's what they want to be diversified because they're just bulletproof to your business.
Right. So it works the opposite way too. We have a lot of people that didn't want to do workshops. They couldn't make them work. And now they just rely solely on Facebook ads. That's single channel risk, because if Facebook changes anything and you stop getting leads, you are also screwed. That is not attractive to an outside investor. And it's also a really dangerous and stressful place for you to be. So whether you want to sell or not, diversify your acquisition channels. And that's going to help you reduce your average customer acquisition costs, because you're not solely reliant on paid ads or workshops. It's going to average that out and bring that down. So we need to have multiple channels, but focus on one at a time. Get one channel to at least $10,000 a month. Once that is sustainable, start working on the next channel you have. The more channels you have, the faster you can grow, the more resilient your business becomes. The last one is data risk. And this one everyone hates. Which is funny, because you would never treat a patient without data. But for some reason, when it's analyzing our own businesses, suddenly research and data is like fucking unimaginable.
Yeah. And it's just, it's not fun to track numbers. Well, it is. I like to track numbers, but for most people, they don't like doing it. But it's if you don't have data, it doesn't. How are you supposed to make decisions too?
Right. It's running blind. It's making gut decisions. And a lot of people, like, they trust their gut, but it's like, your gut has never done this before. What does your gut know about what decisions need to be made? And is it really a gut decision, or is it a decision based in fear? That's really what it comes down to. And so you got to be tracking your numbers, and it needs to be something that we can automatically track our stuff. PT Everywhere has a great KPI dashboard. It doesn't track all the things that you need, but it can get you 80, 90% of the way there. And every single month, just track how many leads did you get? How many calls did you have? How many bookings did you have? How many shows did you have? How many conversions did you have? How much did people spend? How much did it cost to acquire them? If you just track those at the end of every single week, well, then every single month you can say, like, okay, here's where we ended up. Here's what I want to accomplish next month. If I increased each one of these things by 5%, which one of them would have the greatest impact on profit? That's going to tell you what you should focus on every single month, rather than letting gut and intuition drive you, especially when 90% of businesses fail. What do you think all those people have in common? They're listening to their gut and not data. Okay. So if you don't have data, you have low risk, because no investor is ever going to believe that your numbers are just like what you tell them they are. Cool. Anything to add to that, Ben? Cool, everybody. So this is how you maximize the enterprise value of your business, and how you build something to sell, even if you never actually want to sell. Because ultimately, the business that people want to buy is the business that you love, doesn't take a lot of time, and provides for you and your family for the long haul. So start when early as possible in the practice launch journey of building it to sell, because that's how you get the time and financial freedom, and it gives you all of the leverage and options you could possibly ask for should anything happen down the road in your future. Make sure that you're prepared. If you have questions on this, let us know. If you'd like to work with Ben or I, go to clinicalmarketer.com and book a call. We'd love to talk with you and do a practice audit to figure out exactly where you're at and how we could potentially help you grow faster, safer, and impact more people. So thanks for listening, everybody.